Dear soul, the angels want you to know something very important about your journey and your connection with your soulmate. They say your soulmate has already begun to fall in love with you, not because of anything external like beauty, wealth, or status, but because of a quiet, sacred change that took place inside you. You transformed in ways you may not even realize. And that inner shift touched your soulmate so deeply that they could not remain the same. This change was not loud, dramatic, or forced. It was a gentle transformation. You stopped chasing love. You stopped trying to prove your worth. And instead, you began to embrace yourself with respect and grace. You began to choose peace over conflict, truth over fear, and freedom over waiting for someone else to define your value. You started to live as if you were already loved by the universe itself. And that energy was magnetic. It called to your soulmate in a way they could not resist. When your soulmate felt this shift, it stirred something deep within them. It made them realize they could not come to you half ready or half awake. Your light highlighted their shadows. Your healing revealed their wounds, and your strength showed them where they had been weak. That is why, in silence, they packed their bags, not because they were leaving you, but because they had to leave behind the version of themselves that was not ready for your kind of love. They are now on a journey of their own, trying to grow into the person who can stand beside you fully, with steady hands and an open heart. They may not always be with you physically, but they feel you deeply. They sense your energy. They dream of you, and they carry your essence in their spirit. You are not asked to wait or dim your light. You are asked to keep walking your path, to keep growing, and to trust that divine timing is at work. Your soulmate did not fall in love with a fantasy. They fell in love with your becoming, with the way you started to love yourself, with the way you stopped shrinking and began standing in your truth. And because of this, they are changing too. Your transformation is awakening theirs. The angels want you to rest in this truth. Love is already yours. It is unfolding even if you cannot see every detail yet. Your soulmate is not lost. They are becoming. And when the time is right, they will come to you not with fear or half-heartedness, but with the fullness of a love that is whole and divine. Life often teaches us that love is something we must chase, something we must fight for, or something we must prove ourselves worthy of. For a long time, you may have carried this belief. You may have stretched yourself thin, given more than you had, or stayed quiet when your heart longed to speak. Perhaps you thought love would only come when someone else decided you were finally enough. And during that time, you carried battles that no one else could see, silent struggles, wounds hidden deep, and questions that left your spirit aching. But something shifted. The angels say there came a moment when you grew tired of trying to prove yourself. You grew tired of chasing and of waiting for someone else to tell you that you mattered. And in that quiet moment of surrender, not weakness, but strength, you began to heal. You chose peace over conflict. You chose truth over silence. You chose to see yourself not as someone begging to be chosen, but as someone who had already chosen themselves. That was the divine shift. It was small on the outside, but enormous on the inside. And it was this shift that your soulmate felt, even from a distance, even if they never said it, even if they were caught in their own struggles. They felt it in their heart. It was like a wave of light washing over their spirit. They saw you differently. They no longer saw someone waiting to be saved. They saw someone who had saved themselves. This realization shook them, because when true love appears, it acts like a mirror. It shows us not only beauty, but also the places inside us that are still unhealed. When your soulmate saw you step into your strength, they suddenly saw all the places in themselves that were not yet strong. When they saw you choose peace, they realized how much conflict they still carried. When they saw you live in your truth, they realized how much they were still hiding from their own. This was not easy for them. It stirred fear as much as it stirred love. They realized they could not come to you as they were before. They could not come with half-healed wounds, half-truths, or half-efforts. They knew they needed to change. And so, in silence, they packed their bags. This was not an abandonment. It was not rejection. It was preparation. They are on their own journey now, one that requires them to shed old patterns, face old fears, and become someone who can meet you at the level of love you now embody. They may not always understand what is happening to them. Sometimes they may feel restless, sometimes emotional, sometimes lost. But beneath it all is the echo of your shift, the way you became whole, the way you stopped waiting and started living as if you were already loved by the universe. That energy calls them forward every day. The angels want you to know that while it feels like separation, it is actually alignment. You are both being prepared. You are not being asked to wait in pain or to put your life on hold. You are being asked to keep growing, to keep walking your path, to keep nurturing your joy. For your journey is not only about love, but about destiny. You are not just here to be loved by another person. You are here to embody a kind of love that heals, transforms, and awakens everything it touches. Your soulmate did not fall in love with a fantasy version of you. They did not fall in love with a mask, or with the person who once shrank themselves to fit into others' expectations. They fell in love with the real you, the one who began to love themselves, who began to walk in freedom, who began to believe in their own worth. That is the you they cannot ignore. And so, they dream of you. They feel you in quiet moments. They sense your presence even when you are apart. Songs remind them of you. Silence reminds them of you. Their own longing reminds them of you. This is not imagination. It is connection. Your souls are tied together, and every shift you make is felt by them too. You may wonder why love has to feel like distance, why it seems they left when you were finally ready. But the truth is, they didn't leave because love was missing. They left because love had arrived. And when true love appears, it demands growth. It asks us to rise higher, to shed what no longer serves us, to become who we are meant to be. That is the journey your soulmate is on now. The angels remind you that this is not about waiting for them to catch up. This is about continuing your own becoming. For every step you take into your truth, they feel it. Every time you choose peace, every time you choose freedom, every time you choose yourself, you call them closer to their own awakening. You do not need to dim your light to make it easier for them. In fact, the brighter you shine, the more it helps them find their way. One day, when the time is right, they will return, not with half-hearted love, not with guarded hands, but with a love that is whole, steady, and divine. And when that day comes, you will see that this time apart was never a punishment. It was preparation. It was a sacred space that allowed both of you to grow into who you are meant to be. Until then, trust. Trust that love is already yours. Trust that the universe has already written this story. Trust that your soulmate is not lost, but becoming. And most of all, trust yourself, for your journey has already shifted everything. The moment you chose to love yourself, you changed not only your own life, but theirs as well. The angels are proud of you. They want you to know how rare and sacred your transformation is. It has taken lifetimes for your soul to remember its own worth in this way. And because you did, you have awakened a love story that is not ordinary, but divine. So, dear soul, keep walking, keep nurturing your joy, keep standing in your truth, because in doing so, you are not just calling love in, you are becoming love itself. And that is the most powerful force in the universe. That is why your soulmate fell in love with you. That is why they quietly packed their bags. And that is why, even now, their heart is walking toward you. Dear child, your angels want to speak to you with gentleness and truth. They want you to know that the change inside you, the shift that happened when you began to value yourself more than your craving for someone else's attention, is not a small thing. It is divine. This change has affected not only you, but also your soulmate, because the way you began to walk in clarity became a mirror that showed them where they were still afraid, still unready, and still unsure. For a long time, they were comfortable knowing you would always be there, waiting, forgiving, and carrying the connection even when they could not. But then, something happened. You grew. You stopped waiting in desperation. You stopped explaining yourself again and again just to be understood. Instead, you started living with discernment. You began asking questions, not to beg for reassurance, but to honor your own worth. That shift was powerful, and it stunned them, because they had never before seen someone love themselves so deeply, so purely, so quietly yet so strongly. The love you began showing yourself was not harsh or prideful. It was not about proving that you didn't need anyone. It was about recognizing that your soul deserved truth, peace, and honesty. That kind of self-love is sacred. It is rare. And when your soulmate saw it in you, it exposed all the places inside them where they had been hiding, avoiding, or making excuses. They began to feel both awe and discomfort in your presence, because being near you now meant they would also have to rise higher. And rising higher was something they weren't ready for yet. That is why they pulled away. Not because you were too much, but because they realized they were not enough for the level of love you now embodied. Your angels want you to know that their stepping away was not rejection. It was awakening. They began to love you even more when they saw that they could no longer reach you in the old ways. You had outgrown the version of love where you kept waiting and hoping without fulfillment. You had become strong enough to say, "If you cannot meet me in truth, I will meet myself in it." And that kind of strength is rare. It is holy. It is the kind of strength that rewrites lives. But it also made them realize that so much of their life was still controlled by fear, ego, and doubt. Your transformation was not asking for their love. It was requiring their growth. And growth is never easy. It is slow, trembling, and often frightening. So they stepped back, not because they wanted to lose you, but because they knew they could not stand beside you with half a heart. They saw the mountain they would need to climb to stand at your side. And at that time, They weren't ready to climb it. Now, dear child, your angels wrap you in grace because they know you sometimes question yourself. You wonder if you were too harsh, too distant, or too unyielding. But the truth is that you were not being cruel. You were being holy. You were finally speaking from your intuition, not from your wounds. You were honoring your soul, not negotiating with it. That is sacred work, and your soulmate was moved by it more than they ever admitted. They stepped away to find the part of themselves that could stand in truth with you. They left because your light was no longer flickering. It was burning steadily in truth. And truth has a way of awakening people. It either calls them higher or shows them how much they are still asleep. For your soulmate, it did both. They are rising now, slowly and quietly, with resistance at times, but still rising. And they are rising because you showed them a love that is not about performance, but about living. Your angels ask you now to continue walking in your clarity. Do not dim your light to make space for someone who has not yet risen. Do not question your path. It has not been easy, but it has been sacred. You are not alone. You have never been alone. Your soulmate is not lost. They are becoming. And while they are becoming, you are blooming. This is not an ending. This is a pause. A sacred pause between chapters where the universe aligns hearts not through pressure, but through purpose. You are love itself. You are the embodiment of grace. And when you chose truth over temporary comfort, you rewrote the story of your life. That choice is why your soulmate packed their bags. Not out of abandonment, but out of awakening. And when they return, it will not be to the old you. It will be to the version of you who now holds only the sacred in your hands. There was a time, dear child, when your heart was full of questions. You stood in your own life and wondered if love would ever choose you completely. You wondered if your soulmate even saw you, or if you were just another forgotten dream in a world too big. But the moment you stopped looking behind you with fear and started looking ahead with faith, something shifted. You stopped anchoring yourself in what hurt you and began reaching for a future that felt peaceful rather than heavy. You began to dream again, not fantasy dreams, but dreams aligned with your soul's truth. That shift created a ripple in the heart of your soulmate. They quietly packed their bags then, not because they didn't love you, but because they saw you moving forward into a future they weren't ready for yet. You were no longer willing to wait, beg, or shrink yourself. You were building a vision with purpose, and that kind of momentum forced them to either evolve or step aside. They stepped aside, not to abandon you, but to grow. Your angels want you to remember this truth. Your soulmate didn't fall in love with a perfect version of you. They fell in love with the version of you who dared to imagine life beyond heartbreak and fear. When you told the universe you were ready, everything shifted. You no longer clung to love. You expanded into someone ready to receive it fully. They saw that, and though they loved you deeply, they weren't yet walking with the same courage. They were still unsure, still looking back, while you were moving forward. This is why they stepped away. It wasn't rejection. It was preparation. They needed to rise, to let go of their excuses and fears, to learn how to love in the same truth that you now live in. And though it hurts, your angels remind you they didn't walk away from you. They walked toward themselves. They are growing into someone who can meet the life you are now building. Your life has become intentional. You are no longer living on autopilot. begging for signs. You are becoming the sign. You no longer plead to be chosen. You choose yourself every day. That energy is powerful, and it shook your soulmate awake. It told them that if they want to walk with you, they can no longer offer love with doubts and excuses. They must rise fully. Your angels are so proud of you. You looked at your past not with regret, but with reverence. You thanked your pain and released it. You turned to the horizon with courage, saying yes to the unknown. That is faith. That is divine love in motion. And your soulmate felt it deeply. They felt the moment you stopped explaining yourself, the moment you began saying no to anything that wasn't love, the moment you started saying yes to peace and freedom. That was the divine shift. And because of that, they could no longer meet you halfway. They realized they would either have to rise completely or lose the one person who made them want to rise at all. There was a time when you thought love meant enduring quietly. You thought if you proved yourself with patience, sacrifice, and silence, love would stay. But your angels want you to see. The day you stopped fighting for love that asked you to shrink was the day everything shifted. That whisper of no more may have been quiet on earth, but in the spiritual realm, it was thunder. It broke cycles. It freed you. And though your soulmate may not have understood it fully, they felt it. They felt your energy pull back, and they realized they had been relying on your effort for too long. Without it, they had to face themselves. They had to ask if they were capable of matching the depth you offered. They packed their bags, not because they stopped loving you, but because they weren't ready for the new kind of love you were creating. A love that doesn't hurt. A love that doesn't demand silence. A love that doesn't feel like war. You changed the rules, not with words, but with energy. You stopped entertaining conflict. You stopped responding to manipulation. You stopped giving your power away. You began walking in peace, and that shift magnetized love to you rather than chasing it. And this is what your soulmate wasn't ready for. Not yet. They were used to you forgiving and staying. They weren't ready for you to stand so tall in your truth. But their leaving was not an ending. It was a beginning. Because now they know that if they want to stand beside you, they must bring their whole heart. So, dear child, do not doubt yourself. Do not dim your light. You are living proof of sacred love. Your soulmate is not gone. They are growing. You are not waiting. You are blooming. And when the time comes, love will not return to the old story. It will arrive in truth, wholeness, and sacred purpose.